Stop selling us out to China. Stop selling us out to China.
There's nothing you can do about it.
I
love you and you can't do it.
But you sell us out to China? You just said I can't do it.
The inspiration I actually have for China. Because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
China and India together will be 50% of the global GDP, 50%. We're seeing a move in the next 40 years, the likes of which has not been seen for 200 years.
The story that we have millions or hundreds of millions of dossiers on people is completely false. The reason I'm asking the question is, having served on the committee now for a dozen years, I don't really know what a dossier is in this context. So what I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
UBS Securities, which injected $400 million into Dominion's parent company a month before the election, is practically owned by the Chinese government.
Scientists have announced their development of the most powerful quantum computer in the world. It works 100 trillion times faster than the fastest supercomputers out there. President Xi Jinping has said research and development in quantum science is an urgent matter of national concern, and the country has invested heavily in this technology, spending billions in recent years. It has become a world leader in the field.
Would it be fair to say that the White House should know what election priorities are?
They can and do, but I have to say that that does not necessarily extend down to the level of detail. And we're talking about a huge enterprise here with thousands and thousands of individual requirements. So we don't necessarily review with the White House what the forthcoming collection deck is, say for overhead collection for tomorrow, or which human asset is recruiting which source, or in the case of NSA, which selector is being used to fulfill specific requirements. That is done at levels below the White House or the National Security Staff.
Christmas is right around the corner, and the NSA, much like the North Pole, knows who's been naughty and who's been nice. They're dragging that surveillance system. Google has one weakness: greed, human nature. After hearing the testimony of Clapper in the Congress, of the parliamentization, the unaccountability, of the unwillingness. And he is a known Chinese agent, so where is his information being stored? And what are they doing with this information? Imagine the power of being able to play poker against someone, seeing his cards. Russ Hamilton, Mike Mattisau, in real life. The CCP, BYG, blackmail, infiltrating the United States Congress. The Chinese century is a major threat. The global technocracy, the satanic, pedophilic, one world government is taking over and enslaving us into this Chinese social credit score.
You wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal, and you say China is targeting members of Congress with 6 times the frequency of Russia and 12 times the frequency of Iran. What is behind Beijing's aggressive approach?
So they want laws and policies out of the United States that are favorable to China. And what they're really trying to do is, through blackmail, through bribery, through overt and covert influence, trying to make sure that only laws that are favorable to China are passed.
Have you been to Capitol Hill, and have you briefed this threat information to lawmakers?
I was so troubled by what I saw from the position as the Director of National Intelligence that I went and briefed both the House and Senate Intelligence Committees on this information, which they found surprising.
Is the Pope Catholic?
Open the rate.
A heavy hitter.
Germany doesn't want all the gold back. They did this for political reasons, and this is why.
As the state is concerned that there's sort of a fever here right now where people want to make sure that the federal government doesn't have their hands all over anything.
I think that right now the question is, do we all work for central bankers? That's what I want to address to our guest tonight. Is this global governance at last? Is it one world, the central bankers in charge? Jim Urio, you say we've got some downside here, a correction in the markets, fine. But aren't we all just living and dying for what the central banks do? Aren't we all just counting on the fact that there's a Bernanke put and that we won't go any lower?
But money's good as the paper it's printed on, but your personal information used as blackmail like the BYG program of the CCP clearly shows their influence in the international order and the influence of our Congress, learning institutions, and destroying the minds of our youth.
And another explosion went off and it shook the house.
He showed us the aftermath of the damage inside his living room.
Translated, he says that he was part of a national security committee. He got a hold of top secret information stating that Lynn Wood, Sidney Powell, Speaker of Virginia, Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, and President Trump must be dead.
Big tech, because Congress is totally bought off by big tech. And when they don't buy off senators and representatives with campaign donations, they hire the family members of people in Congress. It's one of the reasons why I'm the only Republican in Congress that doesn't accept any PAC donations from any of these special interest groups. But big tech has really paralyzed any reform effort through their extensive lobbying.
The fortunate thing is I didn't have many larger contributors, and the only reason, see, I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself, and
I made him with these hands.
And even though I had legal access because I had my username and password, the minute she did that report, almost instantaneously.
The idea that I am somehow an operative for the deep state is pretty laughable, since I spent the last 2 years fighting them when they tried to destroy me.
Well, I don't believe he's going to be able to cling to power because his powers will expire at noon on Inauguration Day, January 20th. But I am very concerned about what he might do between now and then. And I must tell you, Wolf, I'm more worried now because of what he might do. This embittered, angry, and potentially reckless president. What he might do in these next 70 days, I'm more worried now than I have been during the course of his administration, because he is
in a dark place. But democracy dies in dark.
Democracy can die in darkness.
But I'd rather fight on my feet than die on my knees.
I'm the establishment. No, you are, so tell us, where do you work? What do you do? I work for Google. I'm this. Hey, don't do that. Don't touch me.
Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to have them cheat in elections.
Years ago, we talked about this in San Francisco. It's all about, well, you know, gay bathhouses and everything. It's all about round-the-clock sex. It's all, come on.
Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from Republicans all last week was that you don't have anyone who heard the call. Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election.